We should be live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session today with Dental Shadowers. Today, we have an exciting session with Dr. Wang, an orthodontist. Dr. Wang, thank you so much for joining. And on that note, the floor is yours.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Hi, everybody, and hi to the patients and people I know that are also listening in. I invited pretty much everybody, so it's going to be, a really fun session, and I appreciate the reach out to do this. So I'm an orthodontist, and I thought I would go over the overview of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to go a little bit about my journey, advice for predental students. And then I was asked to talk about a day in the life of what I do every day. And I thought I would add the business of orthodontics today, just because I heard that that's not what what everybody has heard about. So I'm going to talk about that. I have experience in starting a practice from scratch and also buying an existing office and associating. So I'll touch on all that. I squeezed in one case study to prove that I'm an orthodontist and that I do treat patients. And I have some innovations that I'm really excited about in my field and some parting words. So that is, in a nutshell, what I'm going to talk about in this lecture. So about me is I graduated dental school in 2004, and I got my master's in orthodontics in 2007. And I'm not sure why you get your doctor and then your master's, but it's cool. We did a research paper to, get the degree, and I'm really glad that I did it. And I own 2 practices in North San Diego. I am married to a general dentist, and I have 3 kids and 1 dog. And my daughter was looking over this presentation and she said, "You forgot the dog." So I put in the dog. My Instagram is Dr. Melanie Orthodontics. You can PM me there, or you can email me at drmelanie@drmelanieorthodontics.com. And I put pictures of my Ohana, which is my husband and my 3 kids. And then also we have a tagline in my office called Work Ohana, because we really are a family in our office. We love spending every day together. It's, you spend a lot of time with these people, so you better make sure you like them. And I care about everyone deeply. In fact, when COVID hit and, we shut down for 2 months, they all came back, which is a testament, we're just so close as a team, and I'll do anything for them. And I wanted to also point out Jacob, who is taking the picture in the left side. And he is a freshman in college. He started working for me when he was a freshman, and I did not know he was a freshman. He looked older, and I thought, for sure he wouldn't stay on with me because he has no interest in this field. But now he just really took off in the office, and he's approaching 4 years in my office. He's gonna leave soon. I mean, at some point I have to kick him out for sure. But in the time that he's with me, he got his x-ray license. He got his registered dental assistant license. He took the test for that. And we think he's the youngest registered dental assistant in California that's ever taken the test, because he was 17 when he finished his certification for that. So he's definitely on his way. And I love mentoring him, as well as other people. So this is my journey to becoming an orthodontist. And here's proof that I had braces as an 8th grader. That's my 8th grade picture. I was fanatical about science, space, and marine animals as a child. So I really love science. I collected every article about planets and dolphins and Shamu. I just was really fascinated with those subjects. I love to read. My dad is a dentist. He's a general dentist. And my major was biology. My minor was elementary education. And when I was in college, I did a lot of teaching, and, I just love to teach. So I got some really great letters of recommendation from my professors that I helped teach for. I was like the lead teaching assistant, and that's how I got my letters of rec from those teachers. And I actually, of course, when your father is a dentist, you didn't think about going into this field, but I was told I had a business inclination. So I tried finance and business at first, but it's a very cutthroat business, and you really have to cold call and start with your family members, asking them to buy financial stuff from you. And I'm like, that's a little bit too much. And I wanted to go into a field where people needed me and I could do something positive for them. So that's why I chose dentistry. So some advice for pre-dental students: experience in a dental office is a must. Alternatives that you can do is you can volunteer work in a dental laboratory. You can work for a dental company. You can attend a dental continuing education lecture like this one. It's free. There's other lectures through some big companies that you can look at and learn from. And there's always some classes at seminars for pre-dental students at universities. Like, I think I did a one-day class at UCLA when I was a pre-dental student, and that's where I ended up. And my advice is do the best you can, apply everywhere. There was quite a range of GPAs in my class in dental school, like just because the school says, average GPA is a 3.5, like my dental school, I think we were like pretty high, but in talking to people, I knew somebody, believe it or not, with a couple people with low threes. So you just never know, they're going to read the whole package. And if there's something that sticks out, they're probably going to call you an interview and then go from there. And this is my whole mantra with, schools and deciding where to go. And I didn't think too much about where I wanted to go. I did want to go to California school, but, after getting the amount of loans that I have, I think that the best dental school residency is the cheapest school that will accept you. So, when you think about how much dental school is and how much residency is, it ends up being a lot. And I had a 6-figure debt that I did pay off last year, 2 years ago. I paid off 2 years ago. But, anywhere is good. Like, even if you do go to an expensive school, it's still a great field, and, it's still worth it. And even if I went to expensive school, I still would be able to do the things that I was able to do, like start up a practice, etc. So, okay. So my typical work day, I'll start with my morning routine. I work out, I get my coffee, and I get my kids ready for school. And that's like, my whole morning, I'm like on my feet the whole morning. And then our group gets together for 15 minutes before we see patients to review the schedule. And so we typically print out a morning huddle report, and we go over what the next available appointment codes are. Like, if we find that one certain appointment code, it takes like 4 weeks to get in, then we want to, try to improve on that. Like, maybe we're scheduling too many emergencies or something, or maybe we need to add more time somewhere. So we look at that and then we try to make adjustments. Yeah. I hear a kid calling me, but I'm going to ignore them. I told them to be quiet. They know that. And also on the morning huddle report is patients who have birthdays. We reach out to them. And then this also tells us, how many patients that are in braces are past their treatment time. And we really want to try to wrap it up for those patients so that they're done in a timely manner. And then, we talk about new patient calls and starts and new patients added. So, and we compare it to last year because that's our usual gauge of how well we're doing. So my typical workday is we were seeing about 50 to 70 patients per day. And now we're down to 40 to 50 because of COVID, because in my office, I'm still not totally comfortable going back to the regular schedule, even though there's nothing permitting me from not going back to my original schedule. So now that we're squeezing the number of available appointments that we have to be mindful of efficiency and making sure that every single appointment that the patient goes to is, they get as much out of it as possible. So I don't know if we'll ever go back to pre-COVID numbers. It's kind of nice. We're still able to see everybody in a timely manner. So it's great. And in between patients, it's a really, really busy day. In between patients, I'm also working on aligner treatment plans, which is like an Invisalign ClinCheck. So when I'm not, seeing a patient, I'm on my computer working on Invisalign or aligner treatment plans, which are, you guys all know what liners are. You program the treatment and then they send you the aligners. So, and this is an example, because we're trying to get so much out of our day when we're there, we have a code for everything. So these are our appointment codes. It's actually 2 pages. And my whole staff does memorize all of these codes, and each code has a place so that our schedule runs smoothly. There's the schedule, and then they squeeze in what's called doctor time to make sure that I'm using my time efficiently during the day. And like I said, it's a really fast and fun paced day. I love it. And I just, came home from work today and I was like singing and smiling like, oh, it's such a great day. And, I love also the fact that the office that I went to today, I live 1.5 miles from, and my satellite office, I live 7 miles from. And I think about this retiring orthodontist that I talked at a meeting, and I asked him, what was the best thing you ever did for yourself? What's the best orthodontic advice? And he said, live close to your practice. That is just the best thing you can do. So, a short commute is just like, that was like wise words from somebody I hardly knew. So if you can live close to where you work, it's amazing. So now I'm going to get into the business side of orthodontics. We're doing great on time. So when you're all done with your degree and residency, whenever, you have the choice to be an associate, which is you're working under somebody, or being an owner. And a lot of people start as an associate first, where they're working for somebody and they can focus solely on the dentistry and not have to deal with anything else. The income as an associate is relatively stable. It's not as flexible a schedule because, whatever days you promised the owner that you would work, you have to discuss all of that in advance and get their approval. And you can get laid off and fired. And, through no fault of their own, I know some dentists who have had to be laid off this year because there just wasn't enough to go around, which is really scary. As an owner, you have your hands in everything, business, clinical. Income fluctuates sometimes really madly. Like when we were shut down for COVID, I was shut down for 2 months. And I had the misfortune of closing on my other practice a week before COVID. So that was extremely scary, to buy an office and then a week later shut it down. But, we made it through and we're doing okay. And as an owner, you set your schedule. Like if you don't want to work past 5, you don't have to work past 5. I mean, it's not good for your patients. As an orthodontist, people want you there when they're out of school. So you have to play with that and make sure that you're still sane and happy, and your patients have a flexible schedule that, works around them as well. And, you can't get laid off, but you have to let go of employees sometimes. Sometimes it's their fault, sometimes you have no control over, but it's something that you have to develop a thick skin. And so there's associate owner, and now let's talk about startup practice, where you're just have an empty shell and you're going to build this practice and have 0 patients when you start. Or do you want to buy an existing office, which I've done both. I did a startup office, early on in my career, and I recently bought an existing office. And the positives of a startup office are you can set up your own systems, equipment. You start at 0 production, which is scary, no money's coming in. So, then you have to do some marketing to make sure that, patients come to you. More marketing is needed. You have to hire employees. The nice thing is it's a brand new office. So it's all new equipment with warranties, brand new sparkling equipment, which was really, really fun. When you buy an existing office, they have systems and equipment already in place, and they already have what's called accounts receivable. So even though you're taking over, there's some money still coming in from the previous doctor. that'll help you get by. With an existing practice, there's usually 95% amazing patients, and then there's some that are not so amazing, so you have to deal with that. And that's one thing that's beautiful about dentistry too, is you have the absolute right to refuse to treat anybody. You know, if it's just not the right fit and you know it's not going to work, you can tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for you. But if you buy an existing, you kind of inherit those patients and you have to like work around it. You know, with an existing office, you inherit staff, and sometimes they're loyal to the previous doctor and not loyal to you. So that can be a little bit of a challenge. And also, finally, when you buy an existing office, things break because it's old. And I'll tell you right now, like yesterday, it was really scary because I was in the other office and the x-ray machine wasn't working. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to have to buy a new x-ray machine. But luckily I didn't, and it's all good. But, you know, those things happen with an existing office versus a brand new office. You have warranties and they'll take care of you for a couple of years. So I'll talk about my startup office. Here's some basic information. As I said before, my husband is a general dentist. We started up our practice at the same time in 2007. It takes about 18 months to 2 years to break even, be in the black. So when you are starting your office, you need to have an associateship on the side. We really wanted to live in San Diego. We had associateships in place. We were working for other people. And the last part of this slide is going over the next slide, like slides like selecting location, applying for a loan, finding an architect, website, whatever. Okay, so this is how I picked my location for my office, my startup office, is I took out a map and I looked for growing areas where they're building a lot of homes and a lot of schools. And at the time where you see the dot right now it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's like many orthodontists now where I work. There was nobody. And so I'm like, okay, let's start there, you know? So I was the only one for a couple of years. And, you know, we just went with it. You know, and how you find this information is you look on loopnet.com, you can hire a commercial realtor. You don't pay them at all. The leasing person pays them when you close. So there's no skin off your back there. And once you decide on a place, you have to have an attorney to review your lease, start your corporation. And I put my attorney, and I think he works with everybody. His name's Steve Elia at elialaw.com. And he was great with the lease negotiation and the corporation setup. And also when you get, you know, start up a practice or buy an existing practice, you have to secure a loan. And so this is where your good credit comes in. You know, banks understand student loan debt. You know, they understand that dentists have a lot of it, but you know, you don't want to have like a lot of credit card debt or car debt or any excessive debt at all. And if you don't have good credit, then you're going to need a guarantor. You're probably going to need a guarantor anyway, but good credit, you know, we were able to do what we did, you know, 13 years ago because both of us had really good credit. We had to write a business plan, which I don't think in this day and age, you have to do that from scratch anymore. You can probably look on like Facebook or, you know, somewhere in like, you know, the depths of the internet and find somebody that has like some templated business plan and go off of that. And of course, these loans, if you're going to like start up an office, they're going to want you to have a side job because again, you have zero income. And I talked to several banks, you know, you want to, because all of them are going to have different interest rates. So, you know, do what works for you. And I have a great contact here. Her name is Manaz. You can email her if you are thinking about, you know, when the time comes, you can refer back to this presentation and email her. She'll hook you up. She's great. She works for US Bank. So, okay, now the fun begins. I've got my space, I've got my loan, and now we go shopping. And so, you know, we plan out the space and we hired a dental architect to plan out the space and do the plumbing and everything. And we also contact the dental supply companies for the equipment and supplies. So this is the blueprint for my first office. There's 5 ops. And in this day and age, it still works really well. And It has an open concept, 2 bathrooms. It's starting to get a little cramped now, but work with it. And of course, you have to do some marketing. You have to build a website. If you want to look at my website, it's drmelanieorthodontics.com, and start with a logo. You don't have to go too expensive on this. There's something called 99 Designs where it's $100. And it's basically, you say, hey, I'm a dentist, I'm an orthodontist, and I need a logo. And all these graphic designers compete for your business. And then you just pick the best one. And all you've spent is $99 on the whole thing, like letterhead, business cards, you name it. Lots of gift baskets to general dentists. And a big part of marketing these days, because I couldn't do my usual marketing last year, I just put all of my money into digital marketing ads, and it worked. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me at all what the people did, but I just know that my friends are like, wow, you are everywhere. You're all over Facebook and all over Instagram. And, you follow me when I'm like reading People magazine, and I'm like, oh, okay, something's working. So they're seeing my name like constantly. So that was pretty cool. I think digital is like the way to go. It's expensive, but it works. In my case, in a very saturated area, it helps me to stand out. And, once you get your logo that you're happy with, you like basically brand the shit out of everything. Sorry, excuse my French, but just put your logo on everything. So everybody walks out with like a branded water bottle, branded, color changing cup. We have branded hair ties, you name it. We have branded everything. So, you want to just like spread the word any way you can. And also with a startup office, I talked about when you have a existing office, you inherit systems. You got to start figuring out a way to build your systems. So, you need a form, like you need a new patient intake form. Get that from your associateship. Ask your friends, get it from anywhere. But I got most of my forms from where I was working before. And also start to develop systems. Again, steal those systems from wherever you're working, because that's how they like got up and running. And, my systems now that I have in my office are way different from when I started. But it was a good starting point, and we've like built on that. And ever since 13 years ago, our systems are even better. We have this platform called Asana. It's a task assigning platform that it's on the right side of this slide. And we use that for everything. Like we put all our passwords on there. We put all our manuals. We even put like videos on how to bond a bracket, videos on how to take a good scan, all of that. It's all on there. Okay, so this slide was really like one of the ones that kind of got messed up, but I had a bunch of pictures of my my existing practice that I bought because we just remodeled it, but believe me, it's beautiful. And, it's just nice to walk into, a freshly painted office. But yeah, there's only one picture on the slide, but, just use your imagination on this one. Okay, so I wanted to talk about like things that I'm really excited about in my field, and something that has really boomed in my office is 3D printing. I mean, we use it for everything. We have our 3rd 3D printer now, and it all started because we have our scanner. I think you guys have all seen what a scanner does. It takes the place of an impression. So we don't do the impression anymore. You're gonna have to do it in dental school, I know it, unfortunately, but we don't have any impression material in our office, which again, helps us stand out. And when I was young and I had the impression, I cried. And so we don't have any of that anymore. So the slide on the right is our Itera scanner. Hopefully you guys have all seen one, and it takes the place of an impression. I wish I could show you a video, but I can't use your imagination. And our scanner, we affectionately named it Scan Antonio, which is why it's got like the cowboy hat and everything. And so the scanner will do a 3D file, digital file. The file then goes to our printer directly if we're just taking a scan for a retainer and there's no movement. But the exciting thing is now we are able to do our own aligners in our office. So you know how there's Invisalign. Well, I am Invisalign's biggest competitor now because I can do my own aligners in my office with my 3D printer. So same thing, where we scan the patient, the file goes to our computer software. It's called ULab. And then I move the teeth and put the attachments on, and it'll print out like 7 stages for a patient. The 7 files will then go to our 3D printer. It'll print those files, and then we make our retainers or our aligners off of that. So this is like kind of direct competition with Invisalign, but there's a lot of competition now in that space. But I love having the ability to do it in my office. And like a lot of people are happy because, with Invisalign, it would take like so long to get back. And now that it's in Costa Rica, shipping is a nightmare. So we could literally scan a patient in the morning and have their aligner done by the end of the day. The negative of this is it's become this giant time-consuming thing in my office where I've had to hire 2 more people, and even my son will come in on the weekends and help me like make these aligners. But it's all for the best. It helps everybody. It's all good. So when we got our aligners all like, ready to go, I really wanted to outcompete Invisalign as well. So I can post this later. I couldn't do a video, but I used an Alibaba vendor, and her and I went back and forth, and we created this really cool box because I wanted the first day of, getting the aligners to be a whole experience. Because with Invisalign, they didn't give you very much at all. So I like give you your aligners, and I give like all these little swag goodies, and it's just like a really fun experience. And on the right, I even branded my whitening gel. I know, because like I said, everybody has to leave with something branded. So last year was my year where, actually 2 years ago was the year that I started doing the 3D printed aligners. 2020, I started doing 3D printed custom braces. So now all my patients who get braces also go through the Itera Scanner. The 3D file will go to, another program, and it'll like place all the brackets based on their measurements. So it's more precise, and it'll spit out what's called an indirect bonding tray. So when the tray goes in, the braces are exactly where they're supposed to be. And it just saves on time down the road, because if you have accurate bracket placement, you don't have as many detailing and finishing to do at the end. So that saves time for you, it saves time for the patient. And like I said, from the beginning of my presentation, I talked about efficiency and making the most of my appointments. This is something that we've done that's really helped with that a lot. So I have one case to show. This was like my very first case. And this patient was 8 years old, and her chief complaint, you always want to get everybody's chief complaint when you're a dentist, was she didn't like how her front teeth looked. Fair enough. So we did expansion and partial braces. So a year later, and this video doesn't work, so I'm gonna skip it. This is how she looked, after her early treatment. This was from age 8 to 9. And later on, oh, here's another slide where not only did her teeth get straight, but her profile, her lower jaw improved during treatment as well, which is a huge benefit to her. Oh yeah, just totally skipped it. I don't know. I'm missing my final like after, but I can assure you she looks amazing. But she's now 20 and her teeth still look beautiful. She still stops by. So advice to future dentists. I'm a huge fan of Gretchen Rubin and Tony Hsieh. Tony did pass away last year. Tony has a book called Delivering Happiness, which is about culture in the workplace, which I think is really huge. If you don't have good culture, you're not gonna enjoy going to work, and your employees won't enjoy going to work. And then Gretchen has a blueprint on how you can like become happier. And it's about, just being happy with changing your life without really changing your life, and just being happy with what you have. I think these are all her quotes, but these were some quotes that like I think about daily, like how to develop good habits. it matters what you do every day more than what you do once in a while. And it's true, like if you want to like start exercising, you know, do a little bit every day and then it'll become a habit. If you do it like once in a while, it's not going to stick. It's same thing with brushing your teeth or flossing. And something that has really made me an efficient person, even though I still am, you know, working on that to this day, is following the 1 minute rule. Because it's what the 1 minute rule is say you see a task, like you have a pile of mail you have to open. Well, if you can do it in a minute, do it right then and there. Don't even think about it, just get it done. And that has helped to, you know, get a lot of my little tasks done. And finally is to be myself. I mean, you can get a lot of advice. You know, I can tell you how to run your practice or how to talk to people or, you know, like, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not authentic and real, you know, you're not going to be happy, and the other person's going to see that you're not happy. So I really am at a place in my office where if I'm not comfortable treating someone, I don't have to treat them and I'm good. So I think it's important to just be you. And I had met Gretchen Rubin a couple times. Whenever she has a book tour, I meet her. So this was what she wrote to me on one of her meetings, was to be me. So it's all the same to you guys as well. So that is pretty much my presentation, but I do have one more slide, and I talked about Jacob in the beginning, and I don't know if anyone is near me or not, but you know, we're definitely hiring. If anyone in San Diego is like, happens to be around here, I'm looking for, you know, like a college or predental student, you know, up to 32 hours a week after 90 days. I'm sorry I threw that in there, guys. You know, we are looking actively for somebody right now. After 90 days, I will pay for your X-ray license. And if you are interested, email Ariana at drmelanineorthodontics.com. So, 35 minutes.
Dr. Wang, thank you so much for the informative presentation. And no worries about putting up the hiring slide. I know a lot of people are asking for opportunities.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
now we're gonna head over to the questions, if that's okay with you, for like the
Sure.
next 20-ish minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question you have is, what are some struggles with opening your own practice?
Struggles. You know, it was all really fun. You know, but I had to have an associateship, and you know, I had like 2 employees, and I found associateships, but they were like all over Southern California. So I was like driving a lot at the time. Like I drove 2 hours to one job, and I even had one guy like wanting to fly me out like every week, you know, to work for him. So I was like everywhere, and I had a little son as well. So it was like, you know, pretty exhausting. I was working like up to 6 days a week, you know, to just, you know, pay my loans and, you know, put some money into the practice and, you know, support my family, all of that. So that was definitely a struggle. You know, hiring, when you're just new to everything, you know, you're hiring employees for the first time, you don't really know what to look for. You're starting these, you know, forms and these systems, but you're not like totally sure about them. And, you know, it's all just like really new. And, you know, when you're new, you're definitely like kind of unsure of yourself. And, you know, you almost like feel like whenever a patient is like there for a consultation, like you're worried if they're like not going to start with you, or if they, you know, you just want them to start with you so badly because you need the money, you know, so all those things, you know, like play with your head. So that was really challenging. And of course, you know, marketing is just something that, you know, you've got to do, especially when you're new. When you've been in town for quite a while, you don't have to do as much when everybody knows you, but in the beginning, nobody knows you. And plus I had a really young face, and people start saying that stop saying I look young after 4 years. And I'm like, what the heck, you know? But yeah, like the first 4 years, everybody was like, how long have you done this? That was hard, you know, because I would just say, you know, when I first got my practice, you know, I had been working for a year, I would say, oh, I've, you know, been doing this since the end of my dental school career. I didn't like, I added 3 years of residency on top, you know, to make it sound like I had worked longer, which I did. I was like, I've had experience, you know, like I felt like that was legit. I could add my 3 years of residency. That's, you know, but now like I'm 42 now, so nobody questions how long I've been doing this. And plus, you know, I feel like a lot of people in my area know, you know, orthodontists and everything. So yeah, but that's a good question.
Do you know anyone who started off as an owner, or does everyone start out as like an associate?
You know, I think a lot of people did start off as owners. I think half of my class started off as owners, you know, where they bought an existing practice, you know, well, yeah, they either bought an existing practice where somebody was ready to give up their practice, or they got into situations where the owner doctor wanted to have a partner eventually. So they said, okay, work for me for a year or 2 years and let's see how this goes. It's like entering a marriage or dating, you know, you like the person, you think it'll work out, but you have to test them out first and then before you enter and give them a solid commitment. So, you know, yeah, some people did start ownership right away. And then some, you know, did partnerships, you know, and it was a gradual thing, or like maybe 6 months to a year. And others like did associateships, you know, and started their practices later. So.
How many years did it take you after your residency to start your own practice?
So I started my practice a year after residency.
In your experience buying the existing office, what percentage, if any, of the patients decided to leave since their orthodontist left?
Not very many. It was a pretty small office to begin with. There were, out of 98 patients, 2 left when they heard about the transition, you know, before I even got there. 1 did leave after, you know, the transition, but everybody else stayed. But, you know, orthodontics is different. You know, I think with general dentistry, I think a higher percentage do leave, so.
Can a general practitioner dentist do Invisalign or braces, or is that solely like an orthodontic job?
You know, a dentist can take orthodontic classes and Invisalign classes and do orthodontics. Yeah, but we're just a little bit more specialized solely in our field because we did more training, so.
What type of patients do you usually refer out, and are they usually referred to dentists or other specialists?
You mean like for orthodontics or, well, I guess, yeah, I refer a lot of patients out. You know, I work with a lot of oral surgeons. They're the ones that pull wisdom teeth because by the time my patients are done with their orthodontics, they're usually ready to get their wisdom teeth pulled. I refer out to periodontists a lot just because, you know, I have a lot of adult patients and I always want them to have good periodontal health before I start ortho on them. So I refer a lot of, you know, adult patients to periodontists. Those are the gum specialists. And, you know, I do refer, you know, patients to GP, general dentists when, you know, I feel like they're not brushing well or they have a cavity or, you know, they're overdue in their cleaning. I try to keep on top of that as well. Yeah, I work with all kinds of doctors. I don't do too much endo, you know, maybe once a year I refer, but that's about it.
What is your opinion on Invisalign alternatives that are starting to pop up more?
You know, a lot of them are, as long as it's like monitored by an orthodontist, I think that, you know, it's great, you know. At first Invisalign was the only game in town. And since then, you know, 3M has come out with their own product that I know a lot of my friends are switching over to. They're really happy with. You know, a lot of orthodontists are also doing their own in-house aligners for the convenience. And Invisalign was charging like a pretty hefty upgrade fee, you know, to use their product. And the customer service, I mean, yeah, I'm glad there's a lot of competition. I mean, I think everybody needs competition. You know, when you're the only person in town doing something, that's a monopoly, and you know, there's nobody checking you. So as long as it's monitored by an orthodontist or dentist, you know, I feel like that's solid. You know, there's a lot of like fringe things out there that, you know, like direct mail. Those are a little scary because we have to do a pretty hefty workup on each patient before we can start orthodontics. And there's some like direct to customer type of companies where you take your own impression and send in the box, and they send you a box of aligners. Those companies don't have to take x-rays. They don't have to like check periodontal. They just, you know, and if you lose a tooth, you know, they're not going to help you with that at all. So yeah, those are a little scary, but as long as you're being monitored by a professional, then I'm, you know, and those companies that I talked about, like 3M, you know, you have to be an orthodontist to use. So.
What made you choose orthodontics?
You know, I think it just goes with, you know, as a 15-year-old, getting your braces off is the happiest day of your life. And, you know, of course, there's other things that happen later that make you happy, but it's a really fun field. It's very clean. And you're not only like correcting a health issue, but you're like really improving their lives from the inside. Like, you know, it's really apparent in adults who never had orthodontic treatment before. Like, they are the ones that cry when they're done because they've never seen themselves with, you know, perfect teeth before. So those are really fun, and they stick with you for sure.
How did you balance your work life?
Well, like I said, I like live very close to work. So if, you know, I need to go home, I can go home during lunch if I need to. You know, I have a great partner that helps me. And, you know, during this time of virtual learning, I'm very fortunate that I have a teacher like that is employed by me and like a few of my friends, you know, to teach our kids while we go to work. So, you know, that's been really, really helpful too. You know, you never know how many kids you're going to have. I know that sounds crazy, but like, I never expected to have 3 kids, but you know, you're able to make it work. And, you know, you can adjust your hours so that you're there for them. If they have like something really big that you really want to go to, you can, you know, ask for that time off, or you can build it into your schedule and work more another day. You know, I don't work weekends or Fridays. I know that probably means that they may go somewhere else because I don't work weekends, but I'm totally okay with that because my kids and my family need me, and I'm happier that way as well. And like I said, Gretchen Rubin she's been great. You know, she definitely helped with the work-life balance. It's all about like, you know, organizing and, you know, not having too many things and clutter. And yeah, it's all good stuff right there in those books. So.
Did you hire any hygienists in your office?
Orthodontists don't need to hire hygienists. That's general dentists that hire hygienists and periodontists.
Oh, okay. So you guys don't have like any assistants or anything?
I have
Just kind of-
assistants. Yeah, I have registered dental assistants, but I don't have to,
Oh,
I don't hire a hygienist at all. I refer out for that.
what do you do differently when interacting with child patients versus adult patients?
I think adults ask more questions and they're more motivated. You don't have to talk about brushing their teeth or hygiene too much because they're all like extremely meticulous. Kids, you have to reiterate like hygiene and compliance and all that. Adults are much better, but they're also more particular as well. So, you just have to reach out and give them your email and, answer the questions. And with kids, we do this thing where we assign one kid, to a particular assistant that we have, and it gives them rapport with that person and makes them feel more comfortable every time they come in, which helps to make a really good experience for them. The best age, is like the little kids. Like I usually start, if we're doing an early treatment 8, 9, they're always like so happy to see you, and they're like, they feel like such a grown up because they have braces, and you make it fun for them. And we have like goodies and handouts and all that, extra stuff as well. So.
Why did you and your husband choose to open separate practices versus doing a combined practice?
Oh, that's a good question. So I found my spot first. It was just an empty shell. And then all of a sudden, the dentist next door to me, actually, it's not next door to me, but we're in one building. He's on one end, I'm at the other end. He said he didn't want to practice anymore. So we ended up, it was essentially a startup because he had only been doing it for about a month. But it looked like an existing office. So that's why we have 2 separate offices, and it works because, we want to be around each other, but not all the time. So it just works for us. And we managed our practices very differently as well. So, if we had them together, that would make sense too, because we would share on the overhead. But we're both busy enough where we would have been crawling all over each other anyway. And there's no way we could share the space at all, with our schedules. So.
How do you recommend going about getting some knowledge about the business side of owning a practice?
I think the best thing is to go in and volunteer and experience it for yourself, for sure, and get some shadowing. And yeah, that's probably the best thing, is to shadow someone if you can. I just don't know how hard it is right now. So.
What's your favorite procedure to do?
Taking the braces off and then giving them the mirror and say, see, and they're happy, ecstatic. That's the best day ever. And you do that all day long. I love it.
What do you recommend high schoolers do since now?
High schoolers, again, reach out, and see if you can volunteer or work for an office somewhere. I am more particular to when the actual person asks versus their parents, because I get probably 15 requests a day, can my son or daughter come shadow you? And I'm okay, do you want him or her to shadow, or does he, or she want to shadow? There's a difference there. So I really do pay attention to who asks me. And it's when I think about it, hardly anyone asks me. It's always parents asking me. So if you're a high school student, come into the office, have a resume, say you want to volunteer, because, I don't know if people are offering paid jobs, but get in the door and volunteer and work hard and do your best. You're going to probably be cleaning a lot and say you like to clean, you know, but that's a stepping point. That's how like Jacob started, and now he's an RDA and he's got more experience than anybody applying to dental school at this point. So, you know, start there. But I think it matters more when you're the person that asks and not your parents. So.
If you could do it all over again, would you still pick ortho?
Yes, for sure. And I think about that constantly. You know, I think like the tuition has gone up significantly. But you know, even if I had like all that debt, I don't think it would have like prevented me from getting a loan. Just because I'm, you know, pretty careful and I have good credit. And like I said, you know, banks understand student loans. So even if you have like 600, 700, you know, it sounds like a very staggering amount, but, you know, you can, it's still worth it. Like we have the best life. Like, you know, last week I was like, oh, wow, I have to work 4 days a week. You know, I mean, who gets to say that, you know, like, yeah, in the summertime, I'll sometimes work 5 days a week, but that's like stretching it. And, you know, it's just a great thing to like hang your own shingle and, you know, set your hours and be your own boss. So.
What would you recommend to a D1 student?
A D1 student? Like a
Yeah, like the first year of
first
dental
year?
school.
You know, you have to study a lot. I think the schedule is like pretty insane from what I remember. It was like a lot of studying. And maybe you do want to be an orthodontist right now, but I would like kind of lay low about it in the beginning because, you know, everybody's like gunning for a specialty, you know, in the beginning, but doesn't always like pan out that way. You know, try to, you know, volunteer your time. I think that what helped me get into residency above, you know, my peers was, you know, I had good grades. I had a really, well, I didn't have like the greatest, you know, like super duper or anything in dental school, but I had a really high board score, which I took in second year. Yeah. Second year, I had a really high NDBE 1 part 1 score. And then I was also class president for 2 years. So I didn't do any research. You know, so start looking for those opportunities. Like, yeah, study hard, you know, you need to have the grades. And then find some time to have other extracurriculars as well.
Do orthodontists see a lot of children too? Because I know pediatric dentists do, but orthos still see like a lot of children, right?
Yeah, I would say 70%.
70%. Okay, that's a good amount.
Yeah.
Did you take the DAT? And if you did, how did you study for it?
I did take the DAT, and you know, I remember trying to study it when I had like regular school and I wasn't successful. So I spent the whole summer studying for it. Like I took Kaplan. I don't know if Kaplan's still around anymore. Sorry, probably dates me.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had some good stuff, you know, back then. And so I spent like 6 to 8 weeks just focusing. I did work on the side as well, but I spent like 6 to 8 weeks focusing on studying. And I think I ended up with an average score for what UCLA typically gets, you know, so, which is good enough for me, for sure. I don't know what it is now.
How?
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
How
like
was
having little to focus on other than DAT is really important.
Yeah, that's really important. How was your college student employee able to manage working full-time at your office and balancing a heavy science course load in college?
Well, honestly, he hasn't taken any science classes yet because he just started college in the fall. So I keep telling him he's going to get his butt kicked, but you know, he's waiting till the spring to take his first one because he knows that grades are so important. But in high school, he yeah, got out early because he started getting out early as a sophomore because he was working. And, you know, I don't know how he did it, but he was always like ready to work at like when the afternoon hit at 1 o'clock, no matter what. So he was, and what was funny about him was he didn't do anything else but work for me. He didn't like do sports, or he got good grades. He had a good SAT score, so he got a scholarship, but he didn't do anything else but work for me for like almost 4 years.
Wait, so he worked those 4 years all throughout high school? So like at
He
9th and 10th grade?
started as a freshman in February, and that was my mistake.
Freshman in high school.
Yes, it's my mistake.
Wow.
I did not know how old he was.
That's like maybe 14, 15. That's
He was
impressive.
15. Yeah, he was 15. Yeah, which you can work at 15. But he was only working like, you know, one afternoon, like a week for, you know, a good 8 months. And then, you know, he got more like into it. And then he's like, oh, I want to get my RDA. And I'm like, okay, we need an RDA. So yeah, I know. I'm like kind of surprised, you know, if you go on my social media, there's like posts from him about how he started. And he's like, I don't know how I got picked to work for her. I'm just feeling very fortunate that I did. And, you know, I don't stick out from anybody else. And yeah, it's just funny. So.
How do you think the COVID-19 pandemic has changed your outlook on this career, since you mentioned dentists being laid off?
Yeah, I know like some people, you know, like there's people struggling. We all struggle, you know, throughout this. But there's like a lot of people doing very, very well, like dentists and orthodontists doing very, very well. And I think it's like the ability to adapt to everything, and being prepared. So yeah, if you're just like, you know, you just have to adapt and be progressive. Like, you know, during those 8 weeks, it's like I look at it, it was like extremely scary, of course, you know, to shut the business, both businesses down when I just bought one. But during that time, I was able to set that one up, you know, the way I liked it. Like I got rid of all the computers and I put in my management and I like cleaned it up, and, you know, I spent a lot of time like getting that one ready, you know, while we were shut down. And me, I have like, you know, a really good group of orthodontic friends that we talked every day about what we were doing to set us up, you know, when we do go back, and what we're doing differently and stuff. So, you know, all of us bought like a billion air purifiers, and we ordered these masks from China. We did like this giant, like 20,000 bulk order of masks, you know, and that was like crazy, you know, like we ordered masks, and the supplier was like, oh yeah, somebody showed up to the port with cash, so they sold the mask to that guy. And so we're like, oh gosh. So it was like the craziest time. And you know, and so when we got back, you know, and up and running again, I'm really grateful because we just kept going, and we even got busier somehow. Like I thought people would be scared, but people like wanted to still come and get new orthodontics, which is maybe because like the mask covers your face, but we actually like, sorry, that's my son. Stop. Real life for you right there. Yeah, we got even busier, you know, so it was great, and everybody came back. And I'm not, you know, I think that's a lot of people. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of my friends had their best year ever, even with 2 months of shutting down. So, and then I've heard of like the opposite, where like they're down 30% and they had to lay off employees. So it's just, I'm not sure, you know, you just have to like be prepared for the worst, you know?
So it looks like that's all the time we have today, unfortunately. Dr. Wang, thank you so much for joining and giving such an informative presentation. And thank you everyone for tuning in to today's session. The quiz will be posted in our live stream chat, and it can be posted, and it will be found in our link tree in our Instagram. And on that note, I want to thank everyone once again for joining, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your